ISIS is not getting discussed on the mainstream media. Not only are they wrong legally, but the fact that they would do this is outrageous. This is an overreaction and really nonsense. How would you react if this was your son or your daughter? It's the offense of knowing the truth. It's the offense of having an alternate worldview. Saying God bless you to someone is not a violation of the law.
Hey everybody, there's a lot to talk about. We've got a situation that's developed with first of all, 50 boots on the ground is what the president's calling special operation forces in Syria. That's raised quite a lot of concern over the weekend. We talked about it briefly on Friday. We also have a situation where a Russian airliner was shot down or crashed. We don't know the details of it. We do know this. At 30,000 feet, an aircraft flying over the Sinai, which has been notoriously known as a stronghold for ISIS and ISIL, has, in fact, crashed, and all the people were killed on board. We're looking at all the ramifications. Some are saying it may be an act of terror. Others are saying they're looking at the aircraft itself. Jordan's with us. We're actually all in studio today. You're watching us on television as well as on Facebook and Periscope, and, of course, listening to us on radio. We've been in that portion of the Sinai, and that's a very dangerous area.
It is. It's kind of a no man's land because of the United Nations, and this is not a place where Egypt is supposed to go. It's not a place where the Israelis are able to go. You've got some peacekeepers, but it's a no man's land, and because of that, terrorist groups have been known to operate in that region for decades. And so flying there, you're supposed to fly at a pretty high altitude to stay out of range from missiles and anti-aircraft missiles. But now it looks like, ISIS immediately claimed, their affiliate in the Sinai, immediately claimed responsibility for this attack.
Yeah, so this is a big development really quickly. Hey, folks, we're on live on radio today. We're taking your calls. What do you think about the president's plans here, again, with ISIS? Is this enough? Is this doing anything, or is this just politics? We're up on Periscope. We're up on Facebook. We're on radio and television. So we got all our medium working today. Logan, tell everybody what they need to do to get engaged in the conversation early here.
That's right. You can be part of our broadcast right now on Facebook.com/JSekulow. We broadcast each and every day live video and studio quality audio on Facebook. Just go to Jay Sekulow's page on Facebook. Also, go join us on Periscope. Get the Periscope app. Follow Jay Sekulow. We broadcast live every day. You get a push notification to your phone if you have those applications. It's a great way to watch the show, interact, and get your questions in.
I'm going to go to Skip after we come back from the break. He's in charge of our national security practice. We've got a petition that's brand new, and that is if you're going to send American troops into Syria and Iraq, you know what you need to do? Destroy ISIS and protect the Christians, not this 54 special forces, and we'll get into details on this. If you want to see the end of ISIS and protect those that are being persecuted, I want you to go to aclj.org or call us right now at 1-877-989-2255 and sign that petition. It's very simple. Destroy ISIS. If you're going to get in there and let our military do what they're trained to do, which to me is the biggest issue here. We'll get into that with Skip in a moment. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. I'm urging you to sign that petition now. Now, we want to hear from you on the politics of this or the issues that you're concerned with when it comes to Syria, Iraq, ISIS, and what's happening in the Middle East. Here's the difficulty. We've got right now a situation where the president has committed 50 troops, 50 special forces to Syria. They're sitting ducks. You've listened to the analysis that we've done on radio. You've listened to it in the days gone by. You've heard it on TV. We've got to stand with. I think it's critical that our troops are enabled to get rid of ISIS, crush ISIS, and defend themselves from the attack. And also, we got a potential conflict here with Russia that could be devastating in scope. So I would encourage you to go to aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. Sign that petition right now, aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. Also, you're getting email alerts from me. I want to encourage you, if you're not getting them, go to aclj.org and sign up for those. But also, when you get those, support the work of the ACLJ. Make your tax-deductible gifts right at aclj.org. We'll be back with more in a moment.
The Islamic State is beheading, crucifying, and slaughtering Christians. ISIS is threatening to terrorize America. It's waging jihadist genocide against Christians, raping women, and enslaving children. The only way to stop this evil and protect Christians is defeat it militarily. Pinprick airstrikes and sending a handful of soldiers into Syria and Iraq won't work. It's already failed. It's time for America to take the lead. It's time for America to protect Christians from genocide. It's time for America to defeat ISIS. We're demanding that President Obama equip our military and our allies to defeat and destroy ISIS. Sign on to our new petition today. Destroy ISIS, protect Christians. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.
Let me say first that the situation in Syria and Iraq, especially Syria right now, with Russian troops in there, American troops about to go in there. We also know that there are Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces in there as well, Jordan.
Commander Soleimani, he's on the ground in Syria. He's been pictured with the fighters in very tough places like Homs and places that have seen, in Aleppo, some of the worst fighting in Syria. So that's a signal. Even Cubans. The Cubans have. So the Castro regime has got top generals on the ground. This is it's a fight for kind of these worldviews, and you've got Putin taking the stand there, the Iranians taking the stand. These kind of old school dictatorships who say it's not so easy to get rid of us anymore. And I think a lot of this came from the toppling of Saddam Hussein. This is one of their last kind of stalwarts in the region, if you will, the old school dictatorship, and so they're all taking a stand to fight back.
So, it's interesting. I'm going to play in a moment a kind of a juxtaposition of statements here. We're talking about conducting missions directly versus not, because, of course, the Department of Defense is not in sync with the White House. Skip, let me go to you first here. What is your sense of what's happening right now? Skip Ash, by the way, is a retired colonel from the United States Army, has served in the Pentagon, is an expert in the Middle East. He was in charge of the Middle East area and does our national security practice group. What's happened here?
It seems to me that the administration does not want to commit anything into the area, so they've developed hope as their plan. They hope things will go right. They hope the Iranians will behave themselves. They hope the Russians will really pull out at some point. But hope is not a plan. They have waited and waited and waited. Remember, the president made these red lines in the sand.
Right.
If you cross this, we're going to do something. Everyone has been crossed with impunity, and now he is exhibiting extreme weakness. At the last minute, when it will do the least good, now he's submitting, and now he's inserting U.S. forces. It's an absolute disaster. He doesn't know what he wants except not to lose. And that's not a plan.
Ash Carter said one thing, and the White House has said something completely different. Now, we'll get into the details on that in just a moment. Logan, you're getting comments, but folks, we want to hear from you on this. We think this is a big issue, and then you've got that airplane going down in Egypt. And what does that mean?
Related to that, James Reagan said, it has to do with death and destruction. ISIS is always ready to take credit.
Yep.
I also have another comment. Since it seems like it's politics as usual, we can't believe that every move we take or we make in troop movement or any actions on the table are first announced to our enemies. It's crazy.
Well, I don't understand. I never understood that. But let's talk about for a moment the position of the White House and the Department of Defense, because you're going to see a tale of two cities here. Josh Earnest first.
These forces do not have a combat mission. In 2003, President Bush ordered a large-scale, long-term combat operation in Iraq. That is something that Barack Obama, then a state senator from Illinois, spoke out against. He disagreed with that decision.
Okay, so now that's Josh Earnest. Not a combat mission, not putting him in there. All right, Ash Carter, Secretary of Defense.
We won't hold back from supporting capable partners in opportunistic attacks against ISIL or conducting such missions directly, whether by strikes from the air or direct action on the ground.
So, Skip, this is what's so absurd here. So you've got the White House saying this is not about direct actions on the ground, and you got the Secretary of Defense saying the exact opposite. The exact opposite.
The Secretary of Defense is correct. What we need to see is the rules of engagement. If the President of the United States is sending forces into harm's way and does not allow them to be able to fight when they have to, then he is setting them up for failure. He's setting them up to be killed or captured or worse. And what's going to happen is that the whole thing is going to come apart. We are projecting a new weakness to an area that respects strength, and all this can do is make us look worse and invite our enemies into that area.
Folks, we got to make sure that our troops that are now put in harm's way have the ability to defend themselves. If you want to stand with our military, let me encourage you to go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. Let's go ahead and take a phone call here.
All right, let's go ahead and take a phone. Let's go to David, who's calling from Colorado. David, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Hi, David.
I absolutely think this is a joke. This is setting up for a pure snowball effect. This 50, something's going to happen, we're going to end up over there. It's going to be a full force engagement, which it should be. ISIS is getting too big, they're getting too strong, and we got to stop them before they're just too massive.
Well, letting the Russians, Jordan, do it, and I'll talk to Skip about this too, is a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, because they're not just getting rid of ISIS. They're making sure that Assad is there. They're making sure the Iranians have more power.
Right.
This is the group we call an axis of evil. And now that it's expanded, now it's including Russia, because Russia has now taken the side of Iran and Syria. And so you can put all this together. This is the same countries that work with North Korea. They work as far away with dictatorships in the Caribbean Ocean, in Cuba. And so when you put all this together, it's a kind of a beginning of a potential new Cold War, because you could have U.S. troops being fired at or firing upon Russian soldiers, and in a pretty lackluster way. And I think that the caller's right. This could escalate really quickly.
Yeah.
All right, we did a comment coming in from Daryl on Facebook. Said this seems to be an example of how this administration has no understanding of leadership.
All right, so Skip, is this a leadership issue? Is this a political issue? How do you view it?
I view it as both. The president does not want to be over there. He doesn't, he's unhappy that the world is not as nice as he would like it to be. He wants to withdraw in the United States and do his socialism here. The problem is that there's a world out there that isn't going to just sit still and do what he wants. He's acting like a narcissist. Just because he speaks, he expects things to happen. That's what happened when he went to Cairo in his initial speech. He apologized for how bad we were, and he thought that would just calm things down. It has done nothing. It stirred things up. It has projected weakness. What the issue is right now is that we supposedly are over there to destroy ISIS. The Russians said they're coming in to destroy ISIS too, but because we're doing it, they've turned their attention to other enemies of the Assad regime, some of which we are supporting. So they're putting their major effort on the other anti-Assad forces. We're taking care of ISIS. And so what happens is that Assad is going to stay in power because of our policies allow the Russians and the Iranians to keep him in power. And that's an abomination.
Yeah, there's an interesting comment that's coming up on Facebook here, and people are commenting about this, Logan, this idea that, and you heard this on Friday, I guess, is this like the beginning of a World War III?
Yeah, that tends to be kind of a theme that comes through all of our social medias in general. People are saying this because when you see Russia and you see all these different nations that aren't insignificant all coming together, it gets people worried and people are concerned about
Well,
that.
I mean, you look at it I think it's a legitimate situation. I mean, you've got Russia, Iran, as Jordan mentioned. You've got Cuba for whatever reason, but that's because the president signs a deal with Cuba, and the first thing they do is go in and back the Russians, as if somehow that we recognize Cuba, that's going to change. So the reality is you are looking at a situation where it's I don't think we're at World War III. We don't have the true mass of World War III, but we have the conflict of a world war. You got multiple governments involved in a region that's exploding right now.
That's right. And we're not including, even in that discussion, the Syrian forces there, Hezbollah, which controls half of Lebanon.
Which is also Shia.
And Iraq. So you put these together, you're talking Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Russia, Iran. I mean, you put all this together, you're only missing a couple world players, and you do have a worldwide conflict ongoing. The question is, how does the U.S. fight back on the ground there without being in direct conflict with Russia? Because our policy has been that the Assad regime must go. In fact, some of the talks have been that the reason why ISIS has expanded is because the U.S. would not work with the Assad regime to get rid of them. Now, you've got multiple actors on the ground. What happens next?
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing that everybody has got to be really concerned about right now. Let's go ahead and take one call quickly before the break again.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Eric, who's calling from Johnson City, Tennessee. Welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. Eric, you're on the air.
Hi, Eric.
We're actually not working with Russia on this. They're working against Russia.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think this is a basically right now it looks like, Skip, and very quickly here, it looks like kind of a proxy war going on, except Russia has troops, as Jordan just said. Russians got troops in the field, and so do we.
We got snookered. What happens is they cooperated with us supposedly to get this wonderful deal with Iran. As soon as that was signed, the Iranians and the Russians come together against us. We were snookered completely. This administration is inept at all these things. And the Secretary of State, I don't know what he's doing, but it has nothing to do with the interests of the United States.
Let me encourage you to do something. First of all, support the work of the ACLJ. You could do that at aclj.org. Easy way to do it, or call us at 877-989-2255. If you want to see our men and women that are going now in harm's way, under the president's leadership, be able to actually defend themselves and protect themselves, and let me encourage you right now to go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255 and defeat ISIS if we're going in there. Not let the Russians do the bidding here. aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. When we come back from the break, Logan, we'll take more calls, and also, folks, on Periscope, get your comments in as well. We'll be back with more in a moment.
The Islamic State is beheading, crucifying, and slaughtering Christians. ISIS is threatening to terrorize America. It's waging jihadist genocide against Christians, raping women, and enslaving children. The only way to stop this evil and protect Christians is defeat it militarily. Pinprick airstrikes and sending a handful of soldiers into Syria and Iraq won't work. It's already failed. It's time for America to take the lead. It's time for America to protect Christians from genocide. It's time for America to defeat ISIS. We're demanding that President Obama equip our military and our allies to defeat and destroy ISIS. Sign on to our new petition today. Destroy ISIS, protect Christians. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or add your name online, aclj.org.
So 50 troops, whatever that means, into Syria with the Russians there with a lot more than 50 military personnel. The Russians basically running the region now. We've allowed that to happen. Skip Ash had an interesting comment. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But here's what Senator Lindsey Graham, who, by the way, is going to be live on the broadcast tomorrow, had to say about the whole idea of the president sending 50 American Special Forces, number 16.
Sending 50 American Special Forces into Syria in the eyes of ISIL shows that Obama is not all in. It is a sign of weakness to ISIL. They've sized Obama up and they think he's weak. And to our allies, sending 50 troops means that we're not committed to destroying ISIL. And if we're not committed to destroying ISIL, they will attack us here.
You know, Winston Churchill famously said, either crush groups like this or you're going to have to cut a deal with them. So either crush them or cut a deal with them. And the problem here is the president has a political pressure on him, Jordan, right now that's pretty significant. And that is the left side of his party, which he is clearly on, doesn't want, Skip said, doesn't want him there at all. And then yet you got the Russians basically running the Middle East right now, like this was the Soviet Empire again.
Yeah, and they shouldn't be. I mean, the Russians are not that powerful. They don't have a great they have a horrible economy, teetering all the time on crisis domestically at home. They have a stronger leader now. They've spent all of their money on military resources. But that being said, they're nothing like the United States military. And so, but we're letting them act like they are the Soviet Union again, that there's some kind of superpower that we're too afraid of upsetting. And I do think that is the political reality that the president faces, not from the right, from the left and the more extreme left. And he's played into that before. You look at what's happened in Libya. You look at what happened in Egypt. You look at what's happening in Syria right now. I mean, this war is now 4 years. So many people have been killed, almost 500,000 people. And then the people that have been displaced is another couple million people. It is a tragedy unfolding in front of this administration, and they think 50 people are going to be able to do something about it. We know that's not the case.
Sure, we got a good comment that came in from Dennis right now on Facebook. Dennis said, if we oppose Assad, what fills that void? Be careful what we wish for.
Yeah, well, that's why I think the administration, Skip, has made a huge mistake, and that is Assad is awful. Don't get me wrong, awful. I mean, he's been in. By the way, Shahira Gill from our office has a great piece up on ACLJ.org called "The Syrian Civil War and Its Effect," and it goes through the history that the Assad family's only been there since 1970. Bashar Assad, the current leader, the son of the original first king of Syria, so to speak. They've committed horrible things, horrendous. The problem is, and Skip, that's where I want to go to you, behind them, we don't know what it is, and I suspect it could be worse.
That's right. There's going to be no good solution to this in the sense of who's going to come out of it. The Israelis, for instance, are staying out of this because they think better the devil you know than the devil you don't, so they would rather have him in, especially in his weakened state, than they would possibly having ISIS or some Salafist group that is even worse. And
there's another thing, Skip, I want to get to, and this is, you've got he's an Alawite, and you've got the Shia influence on the Alawites, with Iran, of course, coming into Syria, and the majority of the population is Sunni.
That's exactly right. So you have a minority ruling the majority, and the way they've kept power is by putting down the majority.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder why the majority rose up. The problem was when they rose up, that was our time to get involved, because a lot of these people were relatively secular and were just trying to replace this regime with a relatively secular regime, which was not going to be radicalized by the fundamentalist Islamic forces. When we failed to act, we gave the opportunity for these radicalized forces to come into Syria, and now they're dominating the opposition. So we have a problem because we failed to act. The president just didn't see the opportunity and do anything.
All right, we're going to take a phone call here.
We'll go to Pillar, who's calling from New York, New York. You're on the line.
Hi, Pillar.
Hi, I was listening to you earlier. I'm in New York, listening to the radio. I just want to let you know that when I heard you say about President Obama trying to minimize the situation by calling it a diplomatic affair, is disgusting. First of all, the fact that we have to take care of ISIS is going to come, Christians or not. ISIS is going to come over here in America.
Well, they already have. I mean, the truth is that they already have. The president saying this is a diplomatic, or the White House press spokesperson, Josh Earnest, saying this is a diplomatic event, of course, is ridiculous, Skip, because the reality is there's a war going on there. Right now we're letting Russia lead it.
That's true. And this whole idea that ISIS is going to be isolated there, that we now have ISIS forces in Afghanistan, we have ISIS forces in the Sinai. This group is spreading like a cancer, and I'm sure that a lot of these refugees going to Europe right now is going to contain ISIS members, and some of those people coming to the United States, because we're not going to be able to vet them properly, are probably going to be ISIS related. So we may well have ISIS people already here. So ISIS is expanding, and until we show that we have the backbone to stand up and say enough is enough and come after them, they are going to continue to expand, because we are the ones showing weakness, they're the ones showing strength, and when they show strength, it attracts others to their cause.
Let's take Manny, who's calling from San Antonio, Texas. Welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Manny.
I was hearing what you were saying about to go in and destroy ISIS. Hey, our president does not want to do that. That's not part of his agenda.
Well, let me say something. Let me get Jordan to comment on this. I mean, politically, you're absolutely correct. Now, world events should override the politics of what he's trying to do here, because ISIS, unfortunately, has grown, continues to grow, and is a threat. And they're killing Christians every day. I mean, it's not in the news like it was, but it's happening every single day.
Yeah, and even with the Russians taking the side of the Assad regime, ISIS is gaining territory. They're taking
with the Russians
cities.
there.
So they are a full-on military to be dealing with, especially on the ground in Syria and Iraq. We know 50 people. These are special forces. They can inflict a lot of unique damage, specific damage. But what they can't do is defeat an entire military and a governing force. 50 people just can't do that. And the Russians, even backing the Assad regime, are losing cities to ISIS. That's how strong ISIS is right now.
I don't know, Logan, if we're getting calls like this, but I'm going to play number 2 in a moment. Are we getting questions from people saying, what is the president really doing here? What's the impact?
Yeah, we do have a lot of those people who are just curious, a lot of people who are concerned with what that situation
could
mean.
What does 50 mean? Right.
And then also a lot of people are curious what it means for Israel, I'd say, is a common thread. We're also hearing, has Putin really announced what he's planning on doing, or is this all kind of covert?
Yeah, I don't think Putin's announced what he's done. Unlike the United States, he doesn't announce how many troops he's putting over there. But listen to a question from a reporter to Josh Earnest. This tells you how reluctant the president is to engage this issue.
And just to be clear, so you said you think that it will have an impact. Is that a significant impact? I mean, it doesn't sound like you're selling this as a game changer.
No, I think you are astute to make that observation. I think what the president has been quite clear that there is no military solution to the problems that are plaguing Iraq and Syria. There is a diplomatic one.
Okay, this is absurd. There is a military solution to what's plaguing Syria and Iraq right now, and that is you got to get rid of the enemy. And the enemy right now is ISIS. And we're losing focus on these other things. And Skip, my concern right now is that what Josh Earnest said is exactly what the president unfortunately believes.
That's right. You have to be blind not to see what's going on here, and that is the president wants to do as little as possible not to lose. He's not willing to take and commit the forces and resources necessary to destroy ISIS. You cannot compromise with ISIS. ISIS has to be destroyed. You might be able to compromise with other governments and things like that, those who don't have this idea that they want to die in fulfillment of their mission. But ISIS is not one of those groups. ISIS has come to either win or die gloriously, and they're going to take a lot of people with them unless we commit the resources to taking them out. And that means we need to cooperate with those who are against them in that area, but we have to provide the backbone. We have to provide the stiffening to make sure that the forces are effective and they can be applied in such a way that we utterly destroy ISIS.
Yeah.
I also think that we're at a point now where the Assad regime is not going to be toppled overnight. Right. I mean, that can't be the priority. First, the priority is destroy ISIS. Then you can relook at this situation. But people in Syria, they've dealt with 4+ years now of civil war.
Right.
They're wanting to look for some stability. Those stability comes from the strongman. The strongman now has support from another strongman with Putin.
Right.
And so this idea that, we got to topple the Assad regime, that is not going to work for the short term. Right. That could be a long-term strategy. But right now, the threat that ISIS poses to the United States is real, and we have to get rid of them.
Yep. Well, that's going to do it for the broadcast this week. Let me encourage you to do something. Support the work of the ACLJ and support our men and women in the military by going to aclj.org or calling us at 1-877-989-2255 and have your voice added to the chorus of Americans that are standing with our soldiers so they can crush ISIS. And let the president know we want to end this plague that is existing right now in the Middle East, where Christians are being beheaded, killed, crucified. Go to aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255.
The Islamic State is beheading, crucifying, and slaughtering Christians. ISIS is threatening to terrorize America. It's waging jihadist genocide against Christians, raping women, and enslaving children. The only way to stop this evil and protect Christians is defeat it militarily. Pinprick airstrikes and sending a handful of soldiers into Syria and Iraq won't work. It's already failed. It's time for America to take the lead. It's time for America to protect Christians from genocide. It's time for America to defeat ISIS. We're demanding that President Obama equip our military and our allies to defeat and destroy ISIS. Sign on to our new petition today. Destroy ISIS, protect Christians. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.